Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we help folks find high-value, hi-fi home theater and headphone equipment. And today, this could be the answer to all your hi-fi problems. What is it? It's not a deep dish pizza. It could be, though. It is the Parasound 200 integrated. Some people call it the new classic. Is it everything you dreamed of? I don't know. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and let's talk about the Parasound integrated 200. Today's sponsor is Sith Audio multi-purpose audiophile measuring device. That's right, you can measure your speakers, you can measure your room, you can measure how much hot air is in your room, which is messing up your sound characteristics of the room. And then you can install an audiophile hot air removal device in your room. 20 grand, a short 20 grand and you're good to go. But it all starts here with the Sith Audio audiophile multi-purpose measuring device. Available at high quality online and in-store retailers. Right around every corner. Okay, the Parasound. 200 integrated. That's what it says on the box. But online it says a new classic 200. Now this is actually on pre-order right now on Crutchfield. You may be able to find this in other places, but I did a little bit of research yesterday and I couldn't find it. For a while, it was in stock at Crutchfield. One of my patrons, I lovingly call him Dr. C. He has been a big supporter of the channel from the very beginning, December 2020, way back when the channel started. Anyway, he sent this out to me. What is it? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is not a black street sign, traffic sign. It is not a funny looking hi-fi Stingray. No, it's an integrated amp. Also not a deep dish pizza box with a digital display. Okay. Integrated amplifier, and it has a whole bunch of features, which may be benefits for some people. Features, benefits. Class D topology. Class D topology. Okay? Class D topology. Which means it uses Pascal modules on the output for amplification. The majority of the rest of it is designed similarly to what most Class AB amplifiers. This also has a lot of analog only adjustments, whether it be high pass and low pass filters or other things. That's right, there's going to be high pass and low pass filters. What's on the back? All right, this thing is a jammed pack on the back. So from left to right, one has a moving magnet and a moving coil phono preamp. And if you want to, you can just bypass that altogether and have another analog input. But I don't think you really need it because there is three RCA inputs. Then next to that, there are bypass inputs, which I think basically means this will be used as a power amp only. So you're going to be bypassing everything except for the power amp, and you can put two subs in there. If you have this as, say, a 2-channel amplifier right next to a home theater setup, you can bypass all of this, still have it kind of hooked up to your home theater equipment, and in essence use this as a amplifier for your front 2 channels. Next to that is a fixed record out, just in case you want to record something. Next to that, there are 2 summed subwoofer outs. However, they do have a little bit of a difference. One is full range, which means there is no low pass filter put on the subwoofer. You'll have to handle that on the subwoofer. But if you want to do a mono system in another room, you certainly can with that output. The other output has a fixed low pass filter at 80 Hertz. Next to that, there's regular old preamp outs, which means you can use this device as a preamp if you ever outgrow it or you want to add a different amplifier onto this. The interesting thing here is that preamp has a selectable on-off high-pass filter. And that high-pass filter goes all the way from 20 Hertz up to 140 Hertz, and it's all done in the analog domain. So none of this is DSP in here. Turn it on or off. Next to that, you have the DAC section, which is a Burr brown DAC, and I like burr brown DACs. They're usually pretty good. Has optical, coaxial, and full-size USB. So all of your DAC needs are taken care of with a burr brown DAC inside your new Parasound 200 integrated. Then you have a 12-volt out and an IR in. RS-232 for all your RS-232 needs. Next to that is your speaker outputs. This thing can run 4 ohm speakers, 8 ohm speakers, and the power output is the same whether it's a 4 ohm load or an 8 ohm load. What do we have on the front? On the front from left to right, there is a power button. Next to that, there's a headphone output, and they say they have a fully separate headphone amplifier. I tried it. It's okay. It's okay. And then next to that, there's an aux 3.5 millimeter input. So if you have something and you want to plug it into the front, then you can do that. However, if you plug something in the front, it disables one of the analog inputs on the back. I don't remember exactly which one. Then you have the display, which is a little bit dated, but it's very usable. Next to that is the input selector, so you can switch which input you have. But if you push it, that is getting you into the menu of this thing. So you can change bass, treble, balance, subwoofer level. You can do all sorts of things. And it's very simple and streamlined, and I like it. And it's a clicky. Next to that is a mute. Next to that is a very solid volume knob. This thing is pretty solid. When I change the inputs, there is a clunk as far as relays, switching, and changing. This thing feels very solid, high quality. No complaints about the build quality. No complaints about the layout or anything. Yes, it looks a bit dated, but that doesn't really bother me at all. Does it sound good? Is it easy to operate? Does it solve problems? Does it put music into your head, into your brain? Does it do that? Answer is yes. I forgot to mention you can also buy a kit to make this rack mountable, and it does. This looks like it kind of does belong in a rack with the size. Very thin. It's very deep, very thin. So how does it sound? Well, I listened to all of the input. Well, I didn't listen to all the inputs. I listened to the USB, I listened to the optical, I listened to the phono stage, and it's good. I'm not going to say it's great. I'm not going to say it's earth-shattering. I will say that when I was listening to my turntable through the integrated phono preamp, it was about as good as it gets. The phono preamp in this thing is one of the best, if not the best, that I've heard. Now, I haven't heard super expensive phono preamps. I have heard the i-Fi Zen Phono, which is $200. I've heard the shit Manny, which is $150. I've heard the Project Phonobox S1 Ultra, which that's a $350 one. U-Turn Pluto 2. I've listened to a fair number of phono preamps, and however they have this implemented into the Parasound 200 integrated, it's very good. It's a very good integration of the phono preamp. And I think if you are running a lot of vinyl into this, you will not be disappointed, because there is some type of happiness that's going on between the phono preamp and the amplifier, and it's wonderful. Perfect balance of detail, no harshness, no forward lean to any of the frequencies of the music. Bass is full, thick, not bloated, well controlled. Soundstage is very large. Very impressed with the phono section and the Parasound 200 integrated. I was listening to my Polk R100s, and I had my Fluence RT83, which I basically made into an RT85 with the Ortophon 2M Blue cartridge. I also listened to this through the Nagaoka MP110 cartridge. My preference, personally, was Ortophon 2M Blue, which is telling. That's very telling, because on most Class D amplifiers that have a phono stage, I am preferring the Nagaoka MP110 because the characteristic of the sound signature of those Class D amps. The takeaway on that is the Parasound really bucks the trend as far as what most Class D amplifiers sound like. Doesn't quite get to a Class AB amp, and that's a good question. If a Class AB amp is what I personally, and I could be doing this all wrong, I don't know, that's how I measure a Class D amplifier. Does it sound like a Class AB amp or even a Class A amplifier? Usually no, but if I am using that as the measuring stick, then why don't we all just go buy Class AB amplifiers? Well, because in some situations the Class D amplifiers do sound better. In some instances, Class D amplifiers, I think, outperform Class AB amplifiers. And normally, that's in detail retrieval. The problem is they generally underperform a Class AB amplifier when it comes to mid-range fullness, any type of mid-range warmth, and bass control. Not necessarily bass control, bass personality. Put it to you that way. Usually it's just flat and it doesn't grab you. There's no personality. The one thing that Class D amplifiers can sometimes do is pull in a little bit more detail. I think this Class D is probably as close to a Class AB amplifier as I've heard. There are some. I think the Sabage I just did sounds okay, but it has a big soundstage. I think this one has a very big soundstage as well. I think this one sounds better than Sabage. I think the one Class D that sounded really, really good is that higher end SMSL. I think it may be the SA400. I think that one maybe sounds the best. The DA9 from SMSL also sounds good with using the EQ. So there's DSP going on. There's no DSP going on. So when you use the tone controls, that is happening in the analog domain. So while I personally think that some Class AB amplifiers sound better than this Parasound 200 integrated, I don't think they sound much better. And some of them don't have the detail. Let's talk about the NAD C338, which I think comes in around $800. That one uses Hypex modules. This one uses Pascal. The Parasound sounds better to me, to my ear. Sounds fuller in the mid-range, fuller on the bottom, more balanced than the NAD. Even when I use the bass boost on the NAD, this one has a lot more options when it comes to tone controls, high-pass filters, preamp outs, whole bunch of stuff. A lot more options here. I think it sounds better. It's more expensive, but it sounds better. I just hooked up the Rotel Tribute A11 last night. Now that is a Class AB amplifier. They sounded awful similar, and frankly, when I was running the phono stage through the Parasound, I preferred the Parasound over running the phono stage in the Rotel. But the Rotel is about $500–600 less expensive. So for $500 or $600, you could spend maybe $200 or $300 to get a better phono preamp, hook it up to the Rotel, and still be under the cost of what the Parasound is. There is another product to take a look at in this price range, actually way less expensive, is of course the Emotiva TA1 or the Emotiva PT1 with the A2. The TA1 is going to come in a lot lower, I think $550 or $600, basically half. And it's going to give you all the functionality of this one. Even has high-pass preamp outs. I do think the Parasound sounds better, probably upper mid-range and on. It does have tighter bass than the Emotiva. But the Emotiva is no slouch. And when you hook up the A2 power amp, some of that bass tightens up, it cleans up a little bit, instrument separation is a little bit better. And those two together are going to come in lower than this amplifier. It's going to be two boxes, but it's going to come in at a lower price. And I think some people are actually going to prefer the sound of the PT1 and the A2. Or you can get the TA1 and later get the A2 because the TA1 has preamp outs as well. Another telling thing is the 200 integrated comes as a preamp only. So it's fundamentally the same except no power modules. And that's only about $300 cheaper, or even $200 cheaper. So if it were me and I was considering it, I would try to find the power amp one, because for $200, you save yourself a lot of headaches. But if you know you're only going to use it as a preamp, it can be worth it. I think this is a great product. I think it sounds excellent. I think it sounds, I'm not going to say it's the best Class D amplifier I've heard. It's one of the best, that's for sure. I still think the SVS Soundbase is one of the best Class D amplifiers I've heard. It doesn't have any of the functionality of this though. But if someone can use whatever Class D modules are in the SVS Soundbase and put it into something like this at a lower price, I think they have a winner. I think the Parasound's a winner. I just think it's maybe too expensive with all of the other competition out there. And it doesn't seem like it's widely available. I would have no issue using this as my personal amplifier. There's a few things that I wish were a little bit different, but that's my own personal preference. I still think this is a remarkable sounding amplifier, especially the phono stage. The DAC is good. It's quite good. I would say the DAC is on par with a $250 topping E50. I think the phono stage is on par with very expensive phono stages. I think the phono stage does as well, if not better, than the Project Phonobox S1 Ultra, $350. There's a lot to like in this thing. Ton of functionality. And it could be the amp for you if you want an all-in-one solution and you have the budget for this. Also comes with a very capable remote control. It's kind of old school, kind of harkens back to the 90s, but there's a lot of functionality you can do on that remote control from the comfort of your own chair or couch or stool. Maybe you're sitting on the stool, I don't know. Parasound 200 integrated. If you have the budget, I recommend it. Probably wouldn't be for me personally, but I can see I could use it for sure. It wouldn't be my like favorite, oh my goodness, end game amplifier personally. But the overall sound is good enough. You have tone controls, but man, that phono stage sounds awesome. Quite powerful as well. Effortlessly drove my speakers. Parasound integrated. Really good product. If you like the video at all, consider subscribing and, well, like the video. Hit the like. You also may want to turn on notifications because I post a lot of sales in my community section, and sometimes those sales will, well, sell out. So it might be worth it just to subscribe and turn on bell notifications because you may get a really good deal on something. I don't just post things unless they're on sale. Pretty good sale. You can also sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. We have a patron-only Facebook group. We have a patron-only Discord server, which apparently I just figured out how to do last night. There's all sorts of, it's internet stuff. And then we have patron-only Zoom meetings every Sunday night, which are a lot of fun. So great community. It's over 330 people strong at this point. So you may want to consider checking out Patreon. It's a lot of fun. You can also use the links in the description. I think I'll have a link for this one. I'll link it to Crutchfield. If you click on that link and buy, I will get a commission. Doesn't cost you any more though, so it's a great way to support the channel. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen through your new Parasound 200 integrated and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.